Hello, listeners, and welcome to this week's episode of The Cult Vault. I'm your speaker, Casey, and following on with Jehovah's Witnesses month, this week I have a very special interview for you from John. John is an ex-member of the Jehovah's Witnesses who managed to leave the movement through love, support, patience, and understanding from a handful of friends outside of the church. He has ancestors who were some of the first Cuban Jehovah's Witnesses. Listen to John as he tells us his interesting story. A quick bit of business before we start. A huge thank you and a warm welcome to Brian, my newest patron and supporter of the podcast. For anyone who would like to sign up, you can support the podcast through Patreon for as little as £1 a month, with a number of exclusive episodes already available and more on the way each month. Find me at patreon.com/The Cult Vault. Thank you so much, Brian. I'm so happy to have you as a member. I also have an Android app you can download and watch ads to support. It's called The Cult Vault and it's on Google Play Store. If you have 5 minutes, you could leave a review of the podcast, share and follow. This helps hugely with exposure and spreading the word and reaching new listeners. I also have a second podcast, The Conspiracy Vault, with a number of episodes available today. Now enough of business. Here is John. Hi, John. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I'm really excited to speak to you. I know you're super prepared for this interview today after writing all the written responses to the interview questions I sent over. Would you like to just introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them where you are and a bit about yourself?
Hello, my name is John. I'm in the United States of America in the wonderful state of Georgia. A little bit about me. Right now, I'm working in the cardiologist's office as a medical assistant, and I'm going to school to become a nurse, an RN.
Amazing. And how long have you been on this journey of further education?
Oh boy, 2016. Although that was technically the degree of medical assisting, and I just started the nursing degree last year, I believe, 2019.
Wow. And what year will it be when you finally finish?
If everything goes according to plan, it will be, 2022 or 24.
Oh, it's not that far away. 2022 is pretty close. What has it been like during this COVID outbreak? Has it been different for you for your education? Have you been doing sort of any shadow work at all?
So luckily, I'm in just the prereqs for nursing. So I'm doing anatomy and physiology. So I haven't gotten in the nursing program yet. So fingers crossed I do. When COVID first started, I was taking online classes. So it really didn't affect me much.
Right,
Except
okay.
my professor was just more lenient.
Making sure that you actually attended.
Yeah, so I was taking because we had to take, the prereqs like English and all that stuff. So I had to write a 6-page paper in English, but the professor probably just gave up and said, just send me the intro paragraph, one middle paragraph, and then the final paragraph. I don't want anything else.
No way. That's so
Yeah.
so even the lecturers and professors that are having to stay home are finding it difficult to keep the attention span of reading through all those papers.
Yeah, he gave up.
I
feel so
suppose
sorry for him.
that would be a huge job. I mean, how many people did you have in your class?
Oh God. Let's see. We had, I'm trying to remember. Anywhere from, it must have been more than 20, maybe like 30 or so per class, and he had multiple classes. So
Right, yeah. And he doesn't have any lectures, like physical lectures in real life to break up the day, or like an hour in the professor's teacher's lounge and those types of things. So he's just sitting there like read and then just like send me bits and pieces. That's okay, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
So we're here to talk today about your journey in the Jehovah's Witnesses and eventually leaving the religion. What age were you when you entered the church?
So I was actually born. My parents were both Jehovah's Witnesses. My mother was also born. Her mother was born. And
wow.
It goes back, all the way to my great grandmother, who was preached to by one of the pioneers that came over from America to Cuba, which is where we're from.
Right.
So it's been technically the 6th generation.
That's a lot of a lot of heritage, that, isn't it? I mean, if you've had almost ancestors, I would say 6 generations. If you have ancestors that have been brought into the church from all the way over from Cuba, do you think it's a stretch to say that maybe your family was one of the first to be approached by pioneers over in Cuba?
Yes. At least my mom's side of the family was.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big deal. So I'm really interested later on to ask the question about how you leaving the church has affected everything. So so you were born into the church. You have your whole family. So your mum met your father in the church.
Yes. They met in South Florida. And that's where all Cubans go, really. And so that's where they met.
Okay.
In church.
They courted for a little while with obviously a chaperone with them. And then they got married. And then how many children did they have?
So they had me first.
Okay.
They were kind of young, but and then they had my sister 6 years later.
Right, and it's just the two of you.
Yeah. After that, my parents didn't want any more kids.
Okay.
And we were enough.
Oh, were you both a handful growing up?
Well, kinda, yeah.
And you spoke in our correspondence about at the earlier ages of being involved in the church, you were quite scared of the messages that they were teaching you. Can you just tell our listeners a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so pretty much from as far as I can remember, it's always like the end is near, the Armageddon is going to happen, the Great Tribulation is going to be here. Are you going to be on our, God's, Jehovah's side, or are you going to, be on Satan's side? Mm-hmm. Satan's always trying to get you to, he's always trying to tempt you to get you to fall and falter, fall. And so it's always that constant, fear. And then
they're teaching you that obviously from as young as you can understand.
Yeah. And in fact, there's a book that came out, I forgot when, one that they made, mm-hmm. called My Book of Bible Stories, which sounds innocent until you see and read everything. It has major Bible stories from like creation to Cain killing Abel, and there's a graphic picture there. Wow. And then all the way at the end is Armageddon, and you see basically hellfires coming from, mm-hmm. meteors and asteroids coming down, and everyone running away in fear. And we're supposed to see that as like, what's the word? Inspirational. But yeah, that's kind of, yeah.
And that does sound scary as a child, especially because you don't have all the information and you can't rationalize or understand in the way that an adult might be able to, and just assume that if you do anything like, take an extra candy bar to school, that that book is going to be what waits for you at some point, and that must be terrifying. Do you remember what age you were when you realized that you were not going to be smited at any given moment?
Probably when, actually, I think it might have been, let's see, I would have to say 19, almost 20, when I realized this religion isn't real. Because I left before I thought it was real, if that makes sense. Like I left, the religion, uh, still thinking, well, I'm gonna die, but might as well enjoy
Wow.
myself now.
Okay. And
Yeah,
then you left and had a few worldly, in inverted commas, worldly experiences, and then realized that actually everything was going to be okay.
yeah. My fiance was a big help. She helped me, um, realize, this is a cult. That this, their teachings aren't real and then to show me the history of what she found, which is also what you went over in one of the podcasts too, which I was listening to before
Mm-hmm.
um, we got on this call. And so, the more that I found out, the more that I realized like this isn't, real. Like there's not going to be an Armageddon or a great tribulation, which is going to be, you know, so horrible, the worst that everyone's ever seen, like
Mm-hmm.
what they say. So, yeah.
And I know that Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't have churches, they have kingdom halls. So do you remember what your kingdom hall looked like when you were growing up?
Yeah. So there's two that I remember, or well, three. But the first one that I remember growing up as a little kid was in South Florida. All of them were what they call double halls, where there was two sides to it. They're just parallel, and you could have two meetings simultaneously, like one in English and one in Spanish, which is what usually
Okay.
we were. And there was something in the middle, like a hallway to where the bathrooms were and the other little rooms were. So basically, if you go on the side that I went, uh, the one that I grew up, you go through the hall, the doors, and then on the right was like a magazine uh, station,
Right. Yeah.
for lack of words, and that's where they had all the literature for preaching. And if you wanted any more, you had to talk to the person that was, uh, there. That
Right.
was
Okay.
his
Okay.
his job to do that. On the left was the contribution boxes where you could donate money.
Right.
Walk down a little bit more, there were the restrooms, and then the cleaning supply area. And when you walk further down, uh, there was the stage with all the seats in front of it, and
Right.
that's pretty much where it was. And they had like a little podium for the people giving the talks to have their notes on, and on either side, facing the audience, were the yearly scripture, which was just always a random scripture. Uh, like it would have the verse, it'll have like the the words of the scripture, whatever it was, and then whatever verse it was under it. Uh, and it was pretty plain. Small, short carpet floor,
Mm-hmm.
uh, beige walls. No, an important thing too that I always forget to mention: there are no windows, so you can't look outside, or no, people can't look
Right.
inside.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, and
So
the
was your kingdom hall specifically built for your congregation, for the Jehovah's Witnesses? Because I know a few places use um like meeting rooms and conference rooms and community centers and still call them kingdom halls.
so when we build a Kingdom Hall, there's a huge process that kind of goes in when they realize we have all these congregations. This Kingdom Hall in particular is being used like almost 24/7. We need more another Kingdom Halls. So then they go and do whatever they have to do to building permits, and then they build it. And then congregations either like move from one kingdom hall to another or split or whatever the case may be. But that one's been around since I could remember. I participated in building one, which was the third one that I've been in.
Wow.
That was interesting to see how it went from, building, from a plot of land to a building, which looking back, I'm absolutely terrified how it was built, considering little to no one had any background in
Yeah, I was about
construction.
to ask that question, whether you had any like experience or training.
They just told us, let's see, basically how to put it up. I mean, it was almost basic because it kind of looked like styrofoam, but thicker and bigger.
Right.
And it was hollow. So then what we do is we would plot that around as like the border, and then they'd pour concrete in it, and then just keep doing that. And that's to help with hurricanes.
How does that? Oh, is it? Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So how, on average, from start to finish, how long would it take for that particular building that you're speaking about to become fully built?
Let's see. Less than a year.
And how much time during that year did you spend on site helping to build?
So I helped build at least twice for a couple hours, and then they found out that I was too young. They just do that for liability reasons. So I then helped with nighttime security. I was with my father because they have tools there and machines that could probably be stolen or destroyed. Yeah. So we had to take shifts, doing it like a night guard.
And just going back to something you mentioned before about the hall being quite small, the one that you attended when you were growing up, what was the average size of your congregation?
The most recent one, which is what I can remember, it might have been either 100 or almost 200 people. But it depends because, there are some people who are only coming every so often.
Right.
Like they would not come at all. Some people would move, some would move in. So that number always fluctuated, but it was around anywhere between 100 and 200 at any given time.
Okay. And how many elders did you have at this congregation?
Let's see. I'm just try counting them in my head. There's 1, 2. A little over 8 to 10. One of them being my father.
Right. So you had somebody important in your life as an important member of the church as well. So when did he gain this post, and you know what steps he had to go through to become an elder, and then did your life change?
Yes. Let's see. I was 12 when he became an elder officially.
Okay.
To become an elder, first, you have to be male. You have to be baptized.
Yep.
And then you have to have already been a ministerial servant, which is basically, I can't think of any.
Somebody said it's like being a lackey to the elder. So you're like the coffee runner, aide kind of. That's how another ex-member described it to me.
Yeah, pretty much. It's exactly what it is. And after some time, the elders come together and they talk about this particular ministerial servant, like, they're so spiritual, their service time, which is preaching, is really good. They're always helpful, blah, blah, and all that stuff. And then they talk to the, I forgot what they're called now, traveling overseer, which is basically an elder who is appointed different congregations. So instead of staying at one, he goes and oversees all the other congregations, see how they're doing,
Right, yeah.
and all that stuff. And
So
so
would
when
he be the
it's
person who, if he felt like there was a greater need area, he might be the person that would say, can you go over to this other area?
yes, actually, that's one of the things that he does,
Okay.
because he also talks with other traveling overseers,
Okay.
and even the ones of different languages. Because I mean, since we're in America, everyone speaks some English.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they will say like, "Oh, we have a greater need in the Russian-speaking congregation."
Okay. Okay.
So they would, encourage people from ours. Hey, do you want to go learn Russian and preach to people in Russia or in Russian that are in the United States? Yeah, that's
And
with
and it's they're not are the overseers paid positions
no. It's all I've I'm trying to think of the word
on a voluntary
volunteer,
basis? Yeah. So
but
above the overseers, then there's the people at Bethel.
let's see. So I'm trying to remember. Let's see. There's the people, the overseers, and then the overseers are the. I think they call them just district overseers,
Right.
and then it goes to the branch,
Okay.
which
Okay.
will be Bethel in this case.
Right. That yeah. I'm just trying to get a clearer picture of. I've spoken to so many ex-members now. I'm just trying to paint a clearer picture for any of the listeners who might have got sort of not got a full picture of the hierarchy. So there it is.
Yeah,
It's almost like a pyramid scheme.
yeah,
All
it
these
is.
different layers, and then at the very bottom there's the the congregations across the world who are encouraged to pioneer. And then I was reading on the frequently asked questions section of the jehovahsjw.org that said that they don't encourage people to donate money to them, which I'm led to believe they do.
Yeah. So that there was this video that came out, which they call JW Broadcasting, which is like a TV show, not a TV show, Jehovah's Witness broadcasting that they have. You can
Okay.
get it like on an app or something. And the governing body is the one that like gives those talks and does that. And this is actually what it sounds just like that. They go into the topic of, oh, unlike the Catholic Church, we don't have the little uh, pan that you put money in.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we don't pass that around. All of this is very all due to your generous volunteers donations. Now, because of that, we had to tell you about the deficits that we need or how much money we need, and so they kind of like guilt you, and so they make it think it's your choice to do it, but really they're kind of
Mm-hmm.
like pushing for you to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you said that when you go in, there's a whole wall with the donation boxes
Yeah, so
in your
there's
hall.
yeah, there were two. One was for the local needs, which is like built like the water, electricity, all that stuff in their congregation. And then there's one that's for the worldwide work, which goes to Bethel. And honestly, we don't know where it goes.
Yeah, yeah.
Thinking back.
So your father becomes an elder, and does that? I mean, he's been a ministerial servant for a while, I'm guessing. So
Yeah.
does anything really change once he gains that position?
They say no, other than him having more responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
As in, like, now he does shepherding calls where he goes to him and another elder go to someone's house and try to give them encouragement, quote unquote. But they say that it's just like they're just like us, but they're taking the step to, nurture us and take care of us. So
Right.
but socially, yes, there is. I've experienced this because my dad's an elder. Whenever we would move to another congregation, like, because we moved from South Florida to uh, more Central Florida, and we had, because we have family there,
Right.
and then we went to new congregation. So what they do is they transfer your, I'm trying to think of the name. Basically, like your status.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a slip. Like this person is. It's like a report card almost. Of
Right.
like, but we don't get to see it.
Okay.
But only the elders can. And so they sent it to where we moved. And at first, my dad wasn't an elder, and so all the new kids are like, "Oh, hey, a new kid. Let's be friends." Blah blah blah. And then when he's announced an elder, they all stop talking to me.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, this kid, his dad's an elder. That means if we do something wrong, he's gonna rat on us.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
suppose that that must just come with the territory of. I mean, do you think you would have been that person?
yes. Yeah, back then, yes, because one of the things that they teach is that if you if you're doing something wrong, uh, then you're responsible for it. But if you see someone else doing something wrong, but you don't come to them and talk to them saying, hey, you should tell the elders about what you're doing, and give them like a time frame, like if you don't tell them by this time, then I'm gonna have to go to them. If you don't do that, then you're just as guilty as them, and their blood is on your hands.
Yeah. So there's that instilling that fear again into you. So you genuinely think at that age that you are helping them by telling on them.
Yeah.
And again, you're not old enough to be able to know the differences between whether that's right or wrong, or whether that's the right thing to do. Or you've been told that is what you must do, then
Yeah.
I can understand why children tell on each other anyway, but when you're being told that that's what you have to do, I can't imagine how you'd be any different. So, I mean, your dad becomes an elder, people treat you differently. What about your dad? Did he change in any way?
No, actually, from what I remember, he was pretty much the same. Probably just more stressed. Actually, I take that back. Yes, which was stress. I mean, I don't think there was a correlation. Maybe there might have, but he also worked heavy machinery mechanic. So he fixed like
Okay.
dump trucks and fire trucks and all that stuff. And at age 38 or so, like around there, he had a heart attack.
Oh my goodness, that is young.
Yeah. So, and I mean, we have a family history of heart problems. Like on his side of the family, it's about a laundry list. So,
Oh my goodness.
it didn't help that, the job that he had, but it also didn't help the stress that he had to do with, being an elder. Because he had to deal with everything.
And how was he? Did he recover?
Yes. We went to the hospital. It was during a talk that he was doing. It was just any other day or any other night. And he felt this weird pain in his, like, next to his shoulder, near the clavicle kind of area here on the, left side where his heart is. And then he went to my mom after the talk. He's like, we got to go to the hospital. I'm just feeling weird. Like, I think I pulled a muscle, like, this is bothering me. And he was short of breath. Yeah. And then they went to the hospital. And I remember this too. We were in the car. My mom drove. And then he just walked into the ER. And my mom went with him. And my sister and I were just in the car. And then what he said, like, they did EKG. And he's like, oh, I think I just pulled a muscle. It feels weird. He's like, no, sir, you're having a heart attack.
Oh,
like,
my goodness.
Yeah. So then my mom came back without my dad. I'm like, where's dad? And she's like, oh, he's just staying the night. He has to be in the hospital for now. I'm like,
oh my goodness. It's a good job that he had the intuition to take himself to the hospital, though, because I know a lot of people of faith that would be like, I'm okay, I'll be fine. Or even people that are like, oh, I've only pulled a muscle, I'll be fine. So it's good that he had that intuition to go to the hospital. That sounds absolutely terrifying. So,
and
So he's 38, and that's so young as well. And was he the only family member that became an elder?
Let's see. In my immediate family, there's my mom's brother, who is about the same age as my dad. Uh, I think that's it. Everyone else are either too old. I think my grandfather, my mom's
Right.
dad was too.
And do you
But yeah,
remember your father being given the secret book?
yes, yeah, oh yeah. Uh, funny enough, he let me look at it. He was like, "Yeah, look, it's pretty much."
Oh,
Yeah. And he was like, "Yeah, it's pretty much just what we do." He's like, "There's nothing in here that we hide because it's all in different magazines like Watchtowers." And for the most part, from what I remember, it kind of was like it was just, but it was more like, what do elders do in this situation? Like if someone does this, but this situation kind of did all that, it's like, all right, what were we gonna do? So it's not like, and you could ask them to, or at least I was able to. I guess I might have special privileges. Ask like, what would you do in this situation, or how would you handle this? If this person sinned in this way, but this was happening, like how would you handle that? And then like if it's in the book, they can tell me. But I might have had special privileges because I was an elder son. So
did you feel like that was the case?
probably.
Because I know
um,
that I speak about this quite a lot as well in my interviews. I know that a lot of people have, I call it the holier than thou mentality, around people outside of their movement or congregation, where they think to themselves, well, I know the real truth and I'm going to be saved and you won't be. And that makes me special and I feel bad for you. And then on top of that, you've probably got that I'm going to be saved and my dad's an elder. So you've
yeah.
got like that extra layer of yeah, like confidence and do you think that's how it felt?
Yeah, although it's a lot worse with the wives of elders.
Oh, because they all get together as well.
Yeah, because the one particular wife of an elder would go through his letters and notes and stuff, and so he had to like lock it away because she was like nosy, and she
Oh,
was just so pompous, like, and ugh, she's the way she spoke Spanish was those, we call it like the older Spanish.
right.
I forgot what it was called, but she's like, she's like, that's the right way to speak Spanish, not the new modern way. But that's not Spanish. But that's another rant for another time.
Right. Okay. So the wives of the elders, they have that holier than thou mentality. And then what about your mum? Did you notice a shift or change in her once your dad became an elder?
No, my mom is probably a special case because she's such an angel. And I'm not
Oh,
saying that just from like, this is my mom, so
because you're
that's how I feel.
biased, yeah.
Yeah, maybe a little, but from what my fiance's shown and like mentioned, like, yeah, your mom is so sweet. And I'm like, yeah,
Oh.
she is.
Okay, so that's another question for later because you're obviously still in touch with your mum.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you were in the congregation and your father's become an elder, were they then looking at you to move up in the church in the ranks and have extra responsibility? Are you then looked at to become like a ministerial servant?
Yeah. Oh my God, yes. That is like, the way to explain it is, even as little kids, like if we were like 8 years old, running around and, you know, picking our noses, they were like, oh, that's the future elder, because I mean, everyone in the congregation, like all the little kids, boys, actually, because they're male,
Mm-hmm.
are seeing like, oh, that's a future elder. That little girl is probably going to be a future pioneer, whatever that case. And so me especially, because my dad's an elder. Oh wow, oh wow, everyone knows my mom's and dad's family, because in South Florida, there it's a really close knit community
Right.
because we're all Hispanic, and so everyone knows everyone. They're like, oh yeah, I remember, you're talking about my mom's
Mm-hmm.
grandmother. Oh yeah, she used to cook for us, well, all that stuff. So like they all knew
Wow.
each other. So it's like, oh wow, that's their great grandson. Oh my gosh, wow, you can't believe it. You're gonna be an elder one day, aren't you? Because this is like that whole lineage of the Jehovah's
Yeah, yeah,
Witnesses.
yeah. And you do go on to get baptized at 16.
Yep. That part of that reason, I have to admit though, looking back, was also because a friend of mine was getting baptized at the same like time.
Right.
And so I thought like, wait, I should be baptized, like
Okay, so
this is the truth.
it was your decision.
Yeah.
You weren't pressured into taking that next step.
Well, the only pressure there was, in a sense, like going back to my dad being an elder, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like spotlight was on me. Why aren't you baptized?
Okay, okay.
That kind of stuff. So yeah.
I just wanted to quickly point out that it's so windy outside now that when the wind blows, my window makes a noise that sounds like I'm farting, and I just wanted to let everybody know and yourself that is not what's happening. The wind is making the window pane like vibrate, and it's making like a. So if you do pick that up on the mic, then that's not me just sitting here letting myself go. So you have this pressure of everyone telling you that you're going to be an elder, following your dad's footsteps. You then decide to get baptized because your friend is getting baptized. Do you think that you also made that decision because you thought, well, I'm going to have to be an elder one day, so I might as well just get baptized and take that next step? Or was it something that you wanted to do? Did you want to become an elder, get baptized?
So a lot of it was during that time before. I will say like a year before, I thought, okay, it was probably during one of like the most saddest, depressing times in my life. So I thought, okay, I know the reason why I'm like this is because I'm not fully, with Jehovah. I'm always on the fence. I had to be
Mm-hmm.
fully dedicated.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that wasn't the case, but um, and so I studied, I read all the literature, I went out preaching, and then
Mm-hmm.
I got baptized, and I just started working harder. They started giving me different privileges, like passing the microphones when there's the discussion based,
Okay. Yeah.
or working on the sound part of the
Yeah.
for the microphones, and uh, doing parking for the memorial, all that stuff.
And
And
did it
then
help?
no,
Right.
not my mental state. No, it actually made it worse. um, but then I went kind of veered off again and kind of slowly started not doing as much, just
Right.
doing the minimum. Like whenever they give me a part, I used to prepare like the moment I got it. But then my last part that I did, from what I remember, it was like 3 days before.
Okay. And what do you mean
Uh,
by part?
oh, right. So we have what's called the, let's see, it's the school. The short name is school, but I think it's called the ministerial school or something,
Okay. Okay.
which it's a part in a section of the time in the congregation is people giving what they call parts, which it's there's three different ones. There's the talk, where
Okay.
male, usually older male, is given uh, a topic to talk about, and then they have to go and talk about said subject. Like if they say, uh, "Why do we observe the memorial of Jesus Christ?" and they're given 5 minutes to talk about it, and
Okay.
use
Okay.
the Bible and all that stuff. The second one is uh, two people preaching to each other. typically that was reserved for the females, the sisters,
Okay.
because the the emphasis on females were to become pioneers and to preach.
Okay.
And that's actually a point that's been made that they talk about from time to time. But now
Okay.
males do that too, where one person has a tract or a magazine, and the other person is just, non-Jehovah's Witness, pretending, and then they go and try to introduce the magazine or
Okay.
tract or whatever it is. And then the third one, it's either actually wait, my bad, I got that all mixed up. The third one is a Bible reading. So they give like a Bible text and you have to read it.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually given to, it could be any like kids who can read, or anyone, any male can do it basically.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
that's usually first. The preaching of the sisters the second, and then the adult male is the third. Sorry if that mixed up.
So the 5 minute talk sounds like TED Talks. The two women speaking to each other sounds like speed dating, and the third one just sounds like a normal Sunday service.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so for us worldly people, I'm just trying to make it easier to imagine in our minds. So there we go. So
yeah.
You're 16, you get baptized. What does that ceremony look like? Because I haven't been to a baptism myself, and I don't know if a typical Christian, as the umbrella term Christian baptism, would be different to a JW baptism, and the only ones I've seen have been in films and on TV.
Yeah, so this is actually kind of interesting. So there's two different types of times that they get baptized. We have two different, because there are two different what we call conventions. There's a 1-day convention and then a 3-day convention. And it just depends what time of the year it is, because each year they do it, whenever they're assigned.
Okay.
And so basically it's like an event where they have 30-minute talks about a subject. And during that time, there's a section specific for baptism. And so if you can imagine, the stage is in the middle. The first two rows are reserved for people who are going to get baptized. So they're dressed in their normal clothes, like suits and dresses, with a bag of clothes to change into and a towel.
Okay.
They give a talk about baptism and whatever it is. For the moment I went into the changing room, I forgot what was said.
Mm-hmm.
So they do that talk, and then they have all the baptism candidates and everyone stand up if you can, and they ask you two questions. I'm trying to remember exactly what the question was. I had to look it up last time when I typed in the answers. Basically, one of them was, do you recognize that your baptism identifies you as one of Jehovah's Witnesses?
Okay.
And then do you believe that your baptism cleanses you of all your sins and sets you on the path of righteousness, or whatever it was?
Okay.
And we're all supposed to verbally say yes to both of them, and then they walk up, and then they either direct us to where the changing rooms are. The male, female changing rooms are, separate. And then we all change into appropriate clothes, which mine were shorts and a white t-shirt. And then one by one, they bring us into the pool. So one person goes in the pool. An elder is there to baptize us.
Okay.
They tell us how to hold our nose and our hands.
Right. Yeah.
To baptize us, dunk, and then we get out, go back to the changing room and change.
Okay.
For the next person to come in. And
in the audience is like all your family and everything.
Yeah. So
right.
They have an audience. So that happens during lunch, because there's a 1-hour lunch or a 30-minute lunch or something.
Wait, hang on. Wait. So you have like you have this whole day and you're like, oh, we're just going to break for lunch. And once we break for lunch, we're just going to baptize this group of people.
Yeah.
And you can sit in the audience and eat your sandwiches while we dunk all these people in the pool.
Yeah, so some of the places have some of the places have a little cafeteria area where you get to sit and eat, like tables, or you can sit. You can sit outside. The bigger places don't. So yeah, you do sit in your chair and eat, and you can watch because there's also a camera. So if you can't see it, you can see it from the TV.
Okay. And is there a big round of applause? Everyone's cheering.
Usually because that's their family or friends cheering them on.
So no wonder you forget everything when you walk into the changing room. It sounds like it's quite a scary thing to go up on stage and everybody's watching you, and it's just really strange for me to get my head around. And I'm not trying to be offensive to anybody at all when I laugh. It's just because you said this happens at lunch break, and I just imagine everyone like, okay, it's lunch. So I hope that hasn't come across as offensive to anybody. No. So you're baptized, you walk into the room to get changed, you've already forgotten everything, you end up taking all these extra responsibilities to try and take the message of Jehovah in your heart, because at this stage you said that you were skeptical of Jehovah. You were doubting the messages, you weren't fully committed, and your mental health was on the decline. So you tried to rebuild your relationship with Jehovah, but it sounds like another person spoke to me about spiritual burnout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
that's something I experienced.
So you think that you ended up with spiritual burnout through trying to repair your relationship with Jehovah?
Yeah, definitely. Especially, so that burnout happened pretty quickly. It was, it started almost immediately, but it was slowly kind of burning out. And then I had a second wave, if that makes sense. And then just went like almost immediate cut off, like burn. Because after that that convention, there was a campaign for Jehovah's Witnesses for preaching, which was to advertise the JW website. Just go out there, tell people about this website.
Yeah.
It has answers to all life's questions, blah, blah, blah. Go out and preach. And they had like the little tiny not even magazines, pamphlets.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my friend who got baptized, and an older, I say older, he was like, 8 years older than us, older, like an older brother kind of guy.
Yeah.
We all went preaching early in the morning. Like, I'm talking about waking up at 5 to meet up at 6 and to go to like gas stations. And
so you're,
watch.
Yeah, right. So you're 16 at this age as well.
Yeah.
And you're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning as a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And you're going to, I thought you were going to say like high streets and shopping centers and stuff, but you go to like petrol stations and garages.
Yeah. So there were a reason because not many people are out during that time.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do is try to find, the whole purpose of like waking up earlier was to try to reach people that maybe we couldn't reach before. Like, they might be up from the night shift,
mm-hmm.
or they're getting up, go to work and they're just filling up on gas. So we just go, the presentation was like, hey, this is just some information I want to hand out to our neighbors. This is your free copy.
Yeah.
On here is like a website where it has answers to life's most asked questions, and I want you to have it.
Yeah.
And then, you're stuck there. The person's stuck there putting gas in the car, so they can't.
I didn't even think about that. And it's like 5, 6 in the morning, and they've probably just woken up and they're still half asleep.
Yeah, so they're like, all right, thanks. And then they like put it away, in their pocket or whatever, probably forget about it, or they'd say, no, thank you, I'm good. And at that point, we're like, all right, have a good day.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
had like a little competition to see who can give more out.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You need those types of things to keep it interesting, and a little bit of
Yeah.
healthy competition goes a long way. So it's around this time that you have the big burnout, and is it because of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, or where do you think that comes from?
Probably because of that. But yeah, so the burnout, part of it was because of that, but also because for the longest time, I suffer with anxiety and depression. Uh, Probably to the point of this. I couldn't keep on the weight. I was so thin. Like I weighed 125 pounds
Oh gosh,
at 5'11", and
that
then
is very small, isn't it?
yeah, that's underweight. Like I look, and this is they have a picture of me somewhere that I look like just skin and bones.
Oof.
But I was going through all that. Basically, I did it because I thought, oh, if I do this, then Jehovah will help me and help me feel better. And a lot of the uh, time I was with people preaching, I felt good. That's what
Mm-hmm.
they say, like, oh, it's good. But what I didn't know was that was this association, being with people in general.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Especially if
so,
you talk about going out that early in the morning with somebody you consider a friend as well.
yeah,
So
and,
just having that company. But
and
it's
yeah.
difficult. I mean, for anybody that's listening over in England, 125 pounds is just under 9 stone, which
Mhm.
is not a lot of weight at all. So you're struggling with your mental health. I mean, you talk about having anxiety and depression, and taking on all these extra responsibilities and going and speaking to strangers, trying to get them to listen to you about religious things. It I can't imagine how difficult that must be for somebody with anxiety. And I guess a lot of it probably comes from what we were speaking about when you were growing up, about being scared about the rapture and the end times and doomsday and the apocalypse. And so, I mean, I don't like being in big crowded places. That makes me really uncomfortable. So I have to gear myself up when I go to a big crowded place. And then after, I feel exhausted and I'm like, oh, I just had to do this big thing. So, I mean, is that how you felt when you came back from every preaching or pioneering session?
So let's see. Preaching, uh, funny enough, no, because we're the most of the time we were just with our brothers and sisters, people in the congregation,
Yeah, yeah.
because we didn't talk to many people. the the exhaustion comes from walking out in the sun, which is like 98 degrees Fahrenheit, sometimes
Oof.
100,
Yeah.
and like the humidity was normally during like the summer could be uh 70% humidity higher.
Oof. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, luckily we had the dress shirts were the short sleeves, but god, it was terrible. And if your AC didn't work in your car, you're practically dead.
That's very warm. I mean,
Yeah.
so you're having this experience and all of these thoughts, and it's increasingly becoming more difficult. Were you expected to pioneer at all?
Um, the pressure of pioneering wasn't that intense
Okay.
because let me see, a lot of elders really don't because they have to work for themselves to support them and their families, and they have to be elders too. But when I was leaving, they're starting to put more emphasis on everyone preaching more
Okay.
and
Okay.
all that. So I didn't get much of it, but I
Right.
did get a little. Like, so usually when something, I also just remember from back then, whenever the traveling overseer, or I forget, the elder that goes to different congregations, whenever he comes, they have something that's called the auxiliary pioneer, which is a reduced pioneer status in a sense, because
Okay.
you have less hours you have to meet to preach,
Okay.
um, and it's only for that month.
So, do you remember speaking to anyone else in your congregation or the friend you mentioned about the thoughts that you were having and whether they felt the same?
Not at all. No, I was terrified because if I told someone, they could, probably tell someone else.
Right.
Uh, I can't imagine the amount of trouble I would be in.
Yeah, that can only add to your anxiety as well if you're having all these thoughts and feelings and there's nobody that you can speak to about it because everyone you're surrounded by is a part of the church.
Yeah, the only people I really talked to were non-Jehovah's Witness people, kids in school. Uh, but I didn't talk much about it, just,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, generic basic stuff. I'm like, oh gosh, I had to go, preaching, or oh man, I gotta go to a meeting today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I would have to say school helped me a lot because it helped me see that, like, because the whole Jehovah's Witnesses preach that, like, and teach us that everyone who isn't, that's worldly, which when I learned the actual name of a worldly person, like the definition was hilarious because it's the exact opposite of what they said. Um, but like they said, those people are terrible. They're horrible. They're gonna, they don't have God's morals,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they're gonna,
Influenced by the devil. Yeah.
yeah. So, but then I found my friends. Uh, I found my at the time, uh, before my fiance and I were even dating, she was a huge influence in my life. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for her. Uh,
So you
yeah,
you went to public school?
yeah. For the most of my life, yeah. There were some charter schools, which is like a mix of private and public,
Okay.
but just as trashy as public in some cases. Um, but yeah, so I met my fiance in public
Mm-hmm.
school, and then I changed schools.
Okay. 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 So you have you do you did you consider yourself to have a group of friends outside of the church? And
I did.
did your parents know about these friends?
No. They more or less knew that I talked to people in school because they're
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, you're a social butterfly. You always talk to people," which, yeah, technically I am. Um, but didn't see them. They didn't think that they were like close friends, just like
Okay.
kids I
Yeah.
talked to at
Yeah.
school about, like, they thought we just talked about school and, like, I don't know, whatever TV shows we
Yeah.
watch or
Yeah.
stuff like that.
So that probably really helped having that little break away from um everything going on inside the religion. um I wonder if you, well, obviously now thinking about it, if you would have been homeschooled, you'd probably be in a very different place right now, without having that access to um worldly people and another perspective of something other than the church. You could be an elder right now, and that's quite strange to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, it makes me shiver sometimes.
So
Yeah.
you have these friends. You mentioned that you continued to have this sort of distancing. Was there a point where your family picked up on that? Were you ever approached by, two elders who come to your house to sit down and shepherd with you and see if you're, if there's anything they can do to help you on your journey with Jehovah?
I don't know if they noticed that I wanted to leave because I was just doing so much. Like I was literally about to become a ministerial servant if I stayed
Mm-hmm.
maybe a couple more months. When the traveling overseer would come and visit, he would definitely would have appointed me because all the elders loved me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but uh, I think they might have caught on to the depression,
Mm-hmm.
but that might have been more uh, concern. I got lucky when it came to them because the elders that I always had, were either knew me since I was 5 as a baby,
Yeah, yeah,
and so and my dad was friends with all of them, and so they all saw me as like their son basically.
yeah.
And the majority of the elders in the last congregation were nice for the most part.
Okay, okay.
The majority of them, uh, all different backgrounds. So it's not like you have that generic elder who's, you know, power hungry, or, all I'm holier than you. They're
Mm-hmm.
like the
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like if you like if you look at one of them, you wouldn't think he's uh, a doctor, but he is doctorate in math.
Right.
But like he's
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
super chill. Helped me with math too, by the way, which I need help with.
Yeah, don't we all?
Yeah.
So you you distance yourself, but nobody really picks up on it too much, to the extent where you have to be sat down and spoken to about it. So um you mentioned that you left the religion at 1920 without making that decision yourself. Um, how did that come about? Were you disfellowshipped for something you did, or was it one of your parents decided to leave the church? What how did that happen?
So I left abruptly. It was so I had a friend who uh, I went to school with in high school, and we always talked about, being roommates and that whole cool life of, oh yeah, we're going to be roommates, going to stay up and play video games all day. That didn't happen, but that's another story. So
How
she
worldly of you.
was, yeah, she she was looking at apartments because she knew my situation, because I told her about it. She
Mm-hmm.
didn't understand personally, but she knew, like, oh yeah, that's not right, dude. So she was looking at apartments and all that stuff. And she's like, hey, I found this apartment. If we want to be roommates, we could apply at the same time. And under this section, we can say, I want to be roommates with this person.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so they'll
Yeah.
be able to pair you up. So I did that, put down the down payment or deposit,
Uh-huh.
and that was like about almost a couple of months before I actually moved. And so I was just doing everything normal, just, keeping an eye on the apartment. Any new updates that would come up about it, I'll
Uh-huh.
just read it. And then we had a 3-day convention. I had the responsibility of being near the stairs. So when people come up the stairs, I could tell them, like, how many, do you need any seats? If they're coming in later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then like, hey, these people need seats. There's 2, 3, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going down. I say, oh, please use the handrails. Walk on the right side.
Right.
That was on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Saturday I didn't go because I made the little white lie of saying that, oh, I had to do a work thing, which I did it a
Right.
lot to see my
Right.
fiance, which was my girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I went to a birthday party then.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So Sunday was the last day of it. That Monday after I came home from work, I told them I'm moving out into my own apartment, and it
Hmm.
was just like a bomb dropped. Like they were shocked.
This is
Like,
your mum and dad?
yeah, I told my parents, and they're like, "What? Why?" Well, and I I didn't want to tell them at first. In fact, my plan was just to never talk to them again.
Oh gosh, yeah. Do you know, isn't that
Uh,
sometimes people are like,
yeah,
I've just done something so embarrassing, I'm going to change my name and create a new identity for myself and fake my own death so that I
yeah.
never have to talk to them about it.
Then Tuesday, this is a. I'm kind of good. I can go on a tangent here about why I did this, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
If you want.
you
Okay.
tell your story. Yeah, absolutely.
So I worked at a doctor's office. One of the other people there was Jehovah's Witness, and she learned that I had a girlfriend.
Oh
She thought,
gosh.
yeah, she thought that girl was Jehovah's Witness until she realized, oh wait, she's not. My uncle worked as IT for that doctor's office,
Oh my goodness.
and they know each other. So then I was just, minding my own business, working or whatever, and the news of me wanting to move out got out, at
Oh,
work
so,
at least.
oh no.
So they were talking about my worldly girlfriend, my worldly atheist girlfriend. We said atheist because it's harder to preach to an atheist than a Christian, but that's another thing. Um, so they were like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe he's, dating a worldly girl. What is he
Oh
thinking?"
no. Do they think that she's the one you're moving? No. Oh my
So,
goodness. So many wires crossed.
oh yeah. So, I didn't realize this. One of my other coworkers that was with that Jehovah's Witness coworker, because they were working the clinic together, messaged me, saying, "Hey, can you come over here real quick? I need some help with something." I was the minor IT guy. Like I helped with them too when my uncle was busy. My coworker was like, "Hey, John, look, there's something I want to show you. Look at these messages." And it was that Jehovah's Witness coworker and my uncle talking, and she saw me show those messages, and I'm like, "Oh my God, if I get home and my uncle tells my parents about me dating a worldly person, then they're like, are you leaving because, are you moving out because of her?" Oh, so I thought that moment, like,
Oh gosh.
oh no, they brought her into this. Am I allowed to say about curse?
Yeah, it's your
Okay.
story.
I said, fuck this shit. So I ended my shift because it was almost near the end of the day with a pit in my stomach. And I'm like, okay,
Oh
I know what to do.
gosh, that's the worst thing when
Yeah.
you're an anxious person as well.
Yeah.
Oh
But
gosh, that's awful.
I knew exactly what I had to do. My apartment wouldn't be ready for about a week, but that was like the next Monday, from what I remember. But that Tuesday, I was driving, and I called my friend's mom, and I called her and said, "Hey, Batgirl," that was her nickname that we
Mm-hmm.
all called her. "Hey, Batgirl, can I'm driving home. I'm driving from work. Can I come by and can you help me move out, please?" Because she told me, if you need any help, just call me. She's like,
Yep,
all right,
yep.
come over here. We're gonna go. You could put all the boxes in our van, and you could
Wow, what a
pack everything.
whirlwind of events.
So I was there, and I also called my fiance, or yeah, at the time girlfriend, about it, and I said, yeah, I'm gonna be moving out. And so she's like, oh wait, don't go yet. I'll be there in 30 minutes, because she was staying at her dad's house at the time.
Right,
She
right.
was visiting Florida. Um, and so I was just there, waiting for her, all nervous. And then she came in and just gave me the biggest hug. She was like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. So I had the boxes that
Oh my
I was
goodness.
taking. I had boxes that in my car hidden in my trunk that I got from my previous job. And from my job now,
You were hiding boxes in your car of things.
yeah.
Oh my goodness,
And
John, the
so,
plot thickens.
yeah, so that was a couple of months in the making of the boxes. So we put all the boxes, and Batgirl and her husband had more boxes that I could use. And we put them on the van. We drove to my uh, parents' house, and I just got a box. I opened it, and then I walked out, and in there was my mom, my dad, my sister, and
No,
my two uncles, not the
no,
one that was
no.
talking.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, that would have been like insane. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, this is
That-
because I was going to say, like, you couldn't write it. You couldn't write that soap opera episode.
yeah. Um, so I was just walking in, not wanting to say anything. I said very little. My parents were like, Gio, why are you doing this? Shit. I walked in, and my parents were like, John, why are you doing this? And I'm like, because I want to, I just want to move out, blah, blah, blah. And I just got a box, put it into the van, just kept going. I put all my clothes in these boxes.
Oh
Uh,
gosh.
I got, yeah, all my clothes, left all my more personal belongings there. But I was like, you know what, whatever. I'll just buy another PlayStation if it comes to that.
Right, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I wasn't ready to talk to my parents back then. So I was just like, I just got in the van, and
Yeah.
Batgirl walked out and talked to my dad and kind of like talked him down because he was like more scared than he was like angry.
Right.
And so I stayed at her house for a couple of days, and then I stayed at my fiance's dad's house, and I stayed there. Even though the commute to work was a little bit longer, I needed to be there.
And how did you feel? I mean, you must have felt a lot of things moving out. Did you feel like there was probably a torrent of emotions, like guilt and shame and nervousness and anxiety, but also like, did you feel like a weight had been lifted? And like, how was it?
Yeah, it did feel like a weight was lifted because I was like, okay, I did it. I did it. I'm out. I'm finally out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I just want to a shout out to my fiance for talking me down because I went in angry, which never should do, because
Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna cuss them out, say I never want to be part of this cult, and all that. But I never want to talk to you again to my parents. But my fiance was like, no, you'll break your mom's heart.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. Let's just wait it out a little bit, and so now I have a relationship with my parents.
Okay.
Not the
Okay.
same as before, but it's a lot better than what it could have been.
Right. Okay. So you've talked a lot about your fiance. She sounds like an awesome person.
Yeah.
And good for her for all the help she gave you. So good
And
shout out to
yeah,
fiance.
and I also want to give a nice shout out to my friend's mom, Batgirl. She was amazing. Her and her husband just took me in when I needed someone the most.
Yeah, and just said
And I
whenever you need it, we're here. That's great.
that
That's amazing.
I can't thank them enough. If they ever listen to this, hello.
Hello and thank you.
Yeah,
So you mentioned that your fiance, she's not a Jehovah's Witness, but
right.
she is Christian.
Yeah, she
Okay.
grew up Baptist, and then just decided to be more Christian because the Baptist church she went to was actually kind of culty too.
Yeah, yeah,
So that, in a sense, um, made her, understand me. It's not the same
yeah,
religion, but the same culty experiences were very similar. Like
yeah,
the brainwashing and the guilt and all that stuff was, and having to hide who you are. That kind of, you know, helped her to see, what I was like. and she also did a lot of research on Jehovah's Witnesses too when we were just
Yeah.
talking as friends.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. I find a lot of ex-members, and you've probably done the same since leaving the religion, have gone on to do so much of their own research that they weren't, encouraged to do when they were part of the church, which has opened their eyes to so much that they weren't aware of before. And I've mentioned this a few times, so anyone that's listening to this episode will be like, "Oh, stop talking about the same things, Casey." But there's a lot of court cases going on over here in the UK at the moment about historical abuse of members of the Jehovah's Witnesses who are now taking their abusers to court. And some of those abusers are elders, and some of the elders have come forward to say, we have the ridiculous two witness rule. And I keep saying that how many cases of sexual abuse are going to have a witness? Not 9 times out of 10. There's not going to be a second witness for sexual abuse. So that's the most ridiculous thing. So imagine being a Jehovah's Witness today, not knowing any of those things, and then leaving and being able to read all those news articles that they're not going to be sharing in Watchtower or the JW website. They're going to be, they'll praise any positive news articles from various newspapers and media outlets, but if it comes to the shunning of the organization, they're going to make that content as restricted as possible. So did you find yourself researching with your then friend to be girlfriend to then be fiance?
Yeah, so she had all of this dirt basically, and she knew I was at the time, she knew I was in a very delicate time, and time in my transition to XJW, to all that. And so she said, look, whenever you're ready, we can sit down and we could read it together. We could read about all the stuff, not even like from like the historical view, because she's a history major, and so this is like her
forte.
Yeah, she was like, oh, cool. And then she looked it up, and I didn't realize how much was out there. Like, I didn't know that the people who made the New World Translation weren't qualified to do so.
Yeah, just a group of people whose
like,
identities were kept a secret for so long, and then actually when it came out, they were just regular people. I would say like you and me, but I'm a woman, so definitely not like you and me.
I was like, wow.
So you've spoken a little bit about the heritage of your families and the Jehovah's Witnesses. Did your parents talk about the impact that you might be having on that heritage by leaving the organization? Was that used in conversation at all?
Very little. They don't really see it as like important, the heritage. I thought it was at first, because it's like it was mentioned, but it was more like this is an interesting fact. This family was Jehovah's Witnesses for 6 generations.
Mm-hmm. But I guess you would have been the 7th. You would have gone on to be the 7th.
Actually,
or provide the 7th.
Yeah, I think I was the 6th. Let's see. There's her, Ian. I think I was like 6th. Yeah.
And if you would have, been paired up with a lady from the church and had kids, you would have gone on to have the 7th generation. So maybe that was something that... What about your sister? Is she still a practicing member of the church?
Yes, she got baptized earlier last year or so, before the pandemic.
Okay. So, and yeah. And what age is your sister now?
16.
16. Okay. And you said that you still maintain a relationship with your parents, which is, I think, is from what I've learned from other survivors of the Jehovah's Witnesses, it's quite rare, especially considering that your father is he, I'm guessing he's still an elder?
Yeah,
And
he is.
even though you're disfellowshipped from the church, they...
Well, sorry. Well, technically, I'm not.
Okay, okay.
That's on the. That's how they can still talk to me.
Yeah,
Because when I left, I talked to the elders. Um, this is actually something that I learned later, and I didn't realize why my dad really begged me almost to do this. But when you leave, the elders want to talk to you, or like
yeah.
if you're doing something wrong, whatever it may be, not just leaving, but because I didn't say I want to leave Jehovah's Witnesses. I just said I was moving out into an apartment.
Yeah.
Um, so they thought that's what it was, and so I kind of went and talked to the elders, and then it was ugh, just regurgitating the same information, just
Mm-hmm.
saying yes, I understand, blah blah, blah. And then I left and didn't pay any attention to it.
Yeah.
But the reason why my dad said that, and I also learned this from, I think it was the XJW subreddit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it if you are called to talk with the elders about something, like a wrongdoing that they suspect you of doing,
Yeah.
and you don't go, then you are basically saying you're guilty, and then they can disfellowship you without you ever being there.
Right.
So
Okay.
my dad, being an elder, knowing that, told me to go and talk to them so that wouldn't happen. But if I ever
Right.
go back and they start asking me questions and all that stuff, then I probably would.
Be disfellowshipped.
Yeah. Or
Right. Okay. Okay.
if I'm married, uh, I could be what's called uh, censorship, which
Mm-hmm.
is less extreme than disfellowshipping. But I just lose my privileges and I can't do anything. And it's like
Okay.
it's kind of quiet. So like nobody, like disfellowshipping, when it happens, it's announced like this person is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Ugh.
The other part of it, the censorship, I think that's what it's called. I
Mm-hmm.
only know it from Spanish. Um, it's kind of like they don't say it out loud, but if you pay attention to someone who used to answer and preach all the time, they can't answer and they can't preach yet,
Right. Right.
or
Right.
until the elders say so. Yeah,
Because the main fear of leaving the church, if you no longer believe, being saved, is losing contact with everybody that you love.
a lot of that, from what I've heard, they think I've just gone astray, kind of like a lost sheep.
Yeah.
Versus if you denounce, like if you go say anything against it, like I don't believe or anything, typically um, you're marked as an apostate, and
Mm-hmm.
that's this
Mm-hmm.
dangerous thinking because you could, you're basically influenced by the devil, directly or indirectly, as it were. It's just a whole thing, but
Yeah, yeah. So you also mentioned something about being in the Jehovah's Witnesses and not really 100% being able to be yourself.
yeah.
And I've gone back to this question quite a lot. But do you feel like there were potentially any LGBT community members in your congregation?
Funny you should mention that. Yes, because there was a whole scandal about it in one of the congregations we were in.
Okay.
Um, this, I say kid, but we're about the same age. It
Mm-hmm.
was years ago. He would have other boys or like guys our age, and from what I heard, and this is probably more rumor than information, but he would have them, like he would take out his penis and start masturbating, and then they'd all do it too.
Right.
Um, and so that was just like a huge scandal. And like I slept over at this kid's house before, and my dad said like, "Has he done anything weird, that you don't want to do?" Or I'm like, "No." It's like, "What did you do at night?" I'm like, "We play video games and go to sleep. What are you talking about?" I was like,
Yeah,
"Nothing. Don't
yeah.
worry about it." I'm like, Okay, okay, okay." And then around that time, everyone started not wanting to hang out with me, and that's why.
Right,
And one of
okay.
the kids, I think, actually came out as a homosexual, which
Okay.
I think he was cool anyway. But it was kind of obvious, though, in a way.
So that person was accepted and not sort of turned away from the church.
He was.
Oh, okay.
Um, a lot of the people our age in that congregation left. Uh, I could think of at least one, two, three, well, four, a lot. Like the only person who was still a part of it is, I don't know, about my sister's age or so, because he was a little kid
Okay,
back then.
okay. I was just wondering really because I mean you talked about a lot of people that age leaving, and I wonder if it's because, they have parts of themselves that they don't want to have to hide,
Yeah.
and I know it's easy for me to say this from the outside looking in, but I don't want to be surrounded by a patriarchal system that oppresses sexuality and
Yeah.
all those good things that us worldly people have been, have get to enjoy and have been working towards, in terms of equal rights. And I live in the north of England, and near a city called Liverpool, which it proudly supports Pride Month. Is huge over here. There's a whole area of Liverpool called Gay Town. Drag shows over here are so popular. So I don't want to live in a society where I'm oppressed as a woman and also can't enjoy people who are 100% authentically themselves. So yeah, I mean that's me getting off the point, as I often like to do. So what about now? Where do you stand in terms of your sort of affiliation with any religion?
That's to be determined. Like there's some part of me that believes, there's a God out there, or someone or something. We just don't know. And then another part that's like, why would there be? And then there's me in the middle, where it's like, I don't know. There's not enough evidence to show that there is. There's not enough evidence to show that there isn't. I mean, I've had experiences with, like the supernatural, um, or it might have been anxiety.
Mm-hmm,
My
mm-hmm.
fiance and her mom had experiences with the supernatural. Uh,
So do you think maybe you're leaning more towards like paganism and things like that?
I probably would have to look more up, but maybe there is a Christian, like the Christian God, but like my fiance's mom, for instance, she believes, and she's a Christian, and she
Mm-hmm.
believes in God and Jesus, but she makes an interesting point that, so back in, uh, when Israel, was had their rulers and all that stuff, every new king had to write out the word of God, which was the Ten Commandments and everything before. He had to write everything out.
Right.
And so, you know, someone writing a new scripture, or not scripture, the writing every time could lead to someone maybe wanting to change it slightly to fit them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And, all these writings that, like, who knows, the Bible is probably completely different than
Like
what it's
Chinese
supposed to be.
whispers. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a very interesting point. Yeah.
So she just believes, there's God. Um, he's out there. He's cool. I love him,
Mhm.
and he loves
Mhm.
me.
No, I
If
think yeah,
I,
that's nice. That's a nice way to look at it, isn't it?
yeah,
Um, so you're currently on your own spiritual journey, and you don't know where that could take you in the next few years.
yeah,
But just going back to a few things we were speaking about. So you moved out at the age of 20, and you said that you put your deposit down, and that you would sometimes say that you had work to see your now fiance.
yep.
So what age were you when you got a job, and what job was it?
Um, well, I was 16 when I first started working at a fast food restaurant.
Yep.
Um, I will also say that's also where I got a lot of the view of worldly people not being so bad, because
Mm-hmm.
you're in a tiny kitchen with like 100 degrees with all these people.
Mm-hmm.
You either have to get along or you hate each other's guts. So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
all
yeah.
got along. And then I worked from there until I turned, see, 19. That year I was going to school. Um, or the year before I was
Uh-huh.
18, turning 19. I became a medical assistant, and that's the job that I moved out of my
Yeah,
parents'
yeah,
house.
yeah.
I was making a reasonable living wage. I factored in uh, bills and all that stuff, but I didn't do a very good job because I eventually was in debt, which I paid off for the most part.
Nobody does a good job with that stuff though, because you're like, okay, so I need $20 for food a week, which turns out to be $150 a week for food.
Yeah,
And then everyone's like, I didn't even, there's like 10 different types of tax I didn't even know we had to pay. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, nobody knows when they first move out what on earth they're doing.
yeah. That, but no matter how hard it was, I always wanted to. I was like, I'd rather be hungry living here in this apartment than go back and become
Mm-hmm.
Jehovah's Witness.
So you're saying that ultimately, overall, you were happier from the moment you left and have continued to be. And what happened? Did you gradually manage to put weight back on?
Yeah. Excuse me. So I had a doctor's office appointment, my primary care. Before the weight was 128 pounds.
Right.
They weighed me again, and so usually, at least with the program we use, when you type in someone's weight, no matter how much time, like it records the last weight and then this weight.
Yep.
It puts in not an error message, but a pop-up that says, "Are you sure you want to put this weight?" When it's a big difference, high or low.
Right. Yeah.
And my weight went from 128 to 180.
Wow. And do you have any idea the period of time between those two different measurements?
1 year.
Wow. So you managed to put on like 70 pounds.
Yeah.
Is that right? That's 72. Just
Yeah,
help with the
somewhere
maths.
around there. But I had to admit, though, a lot of it was because of fast food restaurants.
Yeah,
But
I was going to actually say that. But you said you started working there at 16, which was around the time you were, on the
yes,
on the thinner side. Um,
yeah,
so you managed to get a good paid job and save up that money and move out. I suppose that's another thing that's worked in your favor, because a lot of people that want to move out of these situations don't have the means to do so. Um, so that's another thing that seemed to have worked in your favor. I've only got a few questions left, but I wanted to ask if there's any notable experiences that you had during the church that you think can contribute towards the cult narrative.
yeah. Actually, there's a few. One of them was hypocrisy.
Okay.
Was rampant. I mean, they talk about they're like, oh, in these churches and Christendom, which is all of other Christianity. That's not them. They're hypocrites. They say, oh, you should love each other, but then they're racist and all that stuff. but I viewed that first on, like I saw, I was in the congregation, just talking to a friend, and I overheard one of the elders who was from Haiti, Creole.
Okay.
And so he, dark black skin, spoke English. I mean, you could tell there's an accent, but like he spoke probably better English than, someone who grew up learning it, because, we have slang and he's very proper. Doc has a doctorate in mathematics.
Wow. Yeah.
And he was just, going around saying hi to everyone, because that's just who he is, all nice and happy.
Yeah.
And he goes to say hello to this elder or this wife of an elder who is Caucasian American. And he says, "Hello, sister, how are you?" And she kind of gives him like a disgusted look, like, "Good, how are you?" And then walked away. And then he was like, confused, like, what the heck was that?
Yeah,
like, and my dad was there. He saw that. And then my dad was like, what do you mean? It's like, what happened? He's like, I don't know what happened. And my dad was like, well, don't you know that she sees you, as like those, dirty Africans, malnourished, with a belly full of maggots, that's how she sees you. And he's like, yeah, true. And they kind of like brushed it off. I'm like,
what?
Fuck.
Yeah, what on earth?
Yeah, like they're, obviously that, because that's how. And another thing too, like she is friends with all the other, she's a mom, so she's friends with all the other moms, but only talks to the Caucasian white female moms.
Right. Okay.
And all the other, moms that aren't like that elders, the Haitian brother's wife is also, from there too.
Okay.
Or another one that's from Puerto Rico who has 3 adorable kids.
Oh.
They talk to each other and my mom talked to them too, but like she doesn't want to talk to any of the other, women.
Right. So she's just basically a racist.
Yeah, pretty much, and thinks that she's higher than everyone else. And another thing was the lack of education, like actual education.
Okay.
This elder came over and we got on the topic somehow of my dog. No, my dog he lives in my parents' house, but he's a Yorkshire Terrier, tiny baby. Yeah. And I don't know how we got on the topic, but we were talking about.
I think we could hear it before, actually.
Oh, that was probably the wire fox.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Because he lives with my parents.
Okay.
Another state,
okay.
But wire fox is another story. My God. But the Yorkie, they were bred and to go into the pipes.
Yeah, tiny little thing.
England, so they can kill the rats that cause the plague.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they were bred very well for is that they could, back up. If you put them in a tight space and they can't jump out, they can go in reverse.
Yeah, and do the little slink backwards. Yeah.
But this elder, he is, I would say, he's a grandfather, but still right in the mind. And then he started, slowly going through dementia after. But very strongly assured that, no, we didn't breed them. God, Jehovah had made them. So there was basically saying that, how he made wolves and how, he made Yorkies too. He made every single breed of dog.
Okay.
When we bred them, we got a wolf and then kind of like morphed it into, bred it into that. And he's like, isn't that like, that's pretty much evolution. I'm like,
yeah. And what about the dogs that don't have like one specific breed that are just an amalgamation of loads of different types of?
Yeah.
Did Jehovah say we will have this dog will be 8 parts boxer dog, 2 parts Labrador, 3 parts Dalmatian, and then this one shall be 3 parts Chihuahua, 2 parts pit bull. Well, that doesn't make any sense, does it?
Yeah. And so I'm like, and then I told him, well, he can't survive out in the wilderness. He's like, yes, because he's been domesticated.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, he's a baby. And so I said, and so now we just made a joke that there's a free range Yorkies just running across the field like a herd of buffalo.
Yeah,
just Yorkies.
Yeah, just tiny like yap.
Yeah, and I'm like, and that kind of made me think like, oh my God, these people are idiots. Oh my God. And my own father, so I did the DNA test of 23andMe, and I learned, I mean, obviously the majority is from Cuba. Like it is very specific, which is funny. I'm like, yeah, I didn't have to pay $100 to know that, but a lot of it came from other like Portuguese countries,
Okay.
Italy,
Mm-hmm.
Different places. And my dad's like, oh yeah, well, we don't really know that for sure. That DNA thing could be, this, take your money because the gene pool now it's much smaller than it was back in the day because when Adam and Eve were, they're made, the gene pool was bigger so they could have more variety of kids. And then when we had the flood,
That doesn't make sense.
Noah and his wife and his sons with their wives, the gene pool is bigger, so they had more a way to, that's why the more inbreeding could happen back then. And now we have to like marry someone of a different race because inbreeding is possible. And I'm like, what? So I just,
yeah, that's strange. I mean, the gene pool can't be wider with only 2 people.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I mean, it's unlikely that I'm going to be related to my partner.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's strange. I mean, again, it's difficult for me to, I know that the people that have these beliefs are coming from a place of that's what they've been taught their entire lives and read over and over. But that's definitely an interesting one. Have you ever thought about your DNA being put into the criminal database and then like potentially your DNA is used to track down like a serial killer?
Really?
Yeah, they're using like genealogy and stuff. They're using people's DNA, and that's how they catch I think that's how they caught the Green River Killer. By some familial DNA where somebody had done a genealogy test and it was like a distant relative of the DNA that they had in the database for the Green River Killer. Huh. So who knows, one day they might use your DNA to capture a criminal.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, everyone in our family is either, well, from what my dad said, there's every type of person in our family except rich. So
you've moved out, you've got your job, you're now how did you get down on one knee and propose to your fiance?
So she had some conditions that I had to meet. I had to live up here.
Okay.
From now I'm in Georgia, so I had to live in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I had to have a job here.
Yeah.
So I couldn't just be some, bum living off the couch.
Mm-hmm.
But I got a job within like the first week or so.
Okay, awesome.
And her mom had to be there as well. So those 3 criteria.
Okay.
I moved up here, got a job, and her mom was hiding in the bushes so she could take pictures. So I took her to the botanical gardens that we have here.
Yeah.
And so I also, to mention, I told her I'm going to propose to you when you least expect it.
Okay.
So she said, okay. So I took her on a date, on the botanical gardens. We were all dressed nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was like, in her head thinking, oh my God, is he going to propose today? No, he can't because I'm expecting it, So way I caught her off guard.
Yeah.
We went to like a kind of secluded area with like a little tiny pond, fountain.
Yeah.
Not a pond, a little fountain with koi fish and little fish.
Lovely.
And because I brought her there because the day before, her mom and I were looking around to find a place to propose, for me to
Yeah.
propose. And she was like, "Oh yeah, when we were here, this was like her favorite part." And so I just casually mentioned, like, "Hey, there's this part that your mom said you really liked." She's like, "Oh really? I don't remember." She actually did forgot because that was years ago when they first moved here, and they went to Botanical Gardens. So I kind of like walked her, but she's the kind of person that helps me appreciate the little things in life. Like she was smelling all the flowers and
Oh,
everything.
lovely.
And so I felt that's one of the things I fell in love with. But her mom was over there in the bushes hiding. And I'm like, okay,
The
I don't want her to.
botanical bushes.
I'm like, I'm trying to like gently, casually lead her to the, little fountain
Yeah,
without
yeah,
being
yeah.
obvious. So I'm like, oh yeah, that's really nice. Come on, let's keep going this way. Um, and then, she was looking at the fish. She's like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this fountain. And she was looking at
Oh,
it, and I took the ring out of the little pocket that's in pants.
yeah, yeah,
And I took it out, got down on one knee, and then she took her a second to look, to turn around. She
yeah.
turned, and she saw me kneeling, and she went, hands on her mouth, backed up like
No,
in
no.
shock. She was like, really?
Oh, I
And then
thought
I
you were going to
said,
say
will you
she went
marry me?
into the koi pond. And that's what I thought you were going to say, that she like backed up into the koi pond. Oh
Oh
my
yeah.
goodness.
Oof, yeah, that was bad. Luckily, it was clean the day before, so.
Oh, so
um,
she has this shocked look on her face. How do you feel at this moment?
I'm just happy, nervous,
Yeah.
um, just And I said, "Will you marry me?" And then instead of saying yes, she said, "Really?" Like she couldn't believe it was happening. She was like, "Really,
Oh.
really?" I'm like, "Yes, really." I'm like, "I still need an answer." She's like, she's like,
Oh.
"Yes." And then I put the ring on her. She's like, "Oh, shocked." And then out comes her mother. And then she's like, "What? Where'd you come from?" She's like, "I was hiding in the bushes."
Oh, that sounds
And
lovely.
yeah.
That's such a lovely, wholesome experience on, considering the things that we've been talking about and
Yeah.
how you felt when you were, 16, 17 compared to that story. I mean, you've come so far and you're in such a different place now. And that's all come from your own your own strong will and the support of others who were patient enough to just listen to you, give you time, understand, and now you're gonna be married, and that's amazing. So this is like this is what your life has been like since. So what advice would you give anybody who's looking to leave the religion at the moment?
I need some advice. The moment you realize you want to leave, just start planning. Like
Mm-hmm.
save up money. Uh, if you have any sort of unnecessary things, like if you pay for uh, any subscriptions to like Netflix or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
something, trust me, I know Netflix is very important. That's what got me through my apartment. But right now, you're kind of on the point of trying to survive to get out. Um, just trying to minimize anything that you don't have to pay for.
Right, yep,
Um,
yep. So any extra pennies you have, yeah.
yeah. Find a support group, or find, if you have a friend who is not Jehovah's Witness or who was and is considered an apostate. If you haven't talked to them, try reaching out. Or if someone that doesn't know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses, just tell them what actually goes on, and they'll, you know, if they're good, caring people, they'll definitely, support you in any way that they can, because this is a cult,
Yeah.
and you have to treat this like an abusive relationship. Just when you do move, just pack as quickly as you can. If you have to, move out of like your parents' house or uh, wherever you may be, and there's people there, just wait. If that makes you feel better, wait for them to leave, pack everything, and then just go.
Yeah.
Have people come over to help you if you need help or whatever the case may be. But the sooner you get out, the sooner you can go back to reclaiming your life and being the you that you deserve to be. And I believe in you.
That's perfectly said. I mean, you're a living, breathing example of what can happen when you take that jump, even if you don't feel like you're ready. You spoke about when you initially left the church, still feeling that sense of impending doom because of, everything that you'd been taught and become accustomed to growing up in the church. And you're still here and you're happy and you're in love and you love your mother-in-law, which is like another great thing entirely. So that's absolutely fantastic. And what you said about people planning ahead, that's not a piece of advice I think we've been given so far, but that's definitely a huge that's a huge thing, especially as you said, you're going to need money. And if you don't want that confrontation, then yeah, just pack while people are out and be gone before they get home. Because unfortunately, the way that most of these situations seem to go is that you're going to have to cut contact with your family at some point anyway. Given the nature of the church and its excommunicating and shunning and all that nasty business. So I've just got one more question before I ask you if there's anything you think we've missed. And that is, do you think that this COVID pandemic has given people a chance to step away from the church and have the similar thoughts and feelings that you were having? Or do you think it's only reinforcing the end times message of the church?
Oof, that's a tough one. I will say yes to both. And my reasoning is on the point of them thinking this is the end times. It, does reinforce it. I mean, in a way. But like they thought, the end time was going to come when Donald Trump became president, or when 9/11 happened, or when World War I and World War II happened. They're always thinking, "Oh, this is the end times," or when California is on fire again. They find any negative sort of event and see, this is the end times. This is like what the Bible said. And they think that like COVID is another example, of plagues going across, the world. But really, the plagues have been going on since, living things have been here almost, if not longer. But also, people might be seeing the fakeness of it, like. Because we have to go to the meetings, it's an active thing we have to do. We have to, get home from work. We have to get dressed, get prepared, and just go.
Yeah.
And now they do the meetings on Zoom.
Yeah.
And I'm not entirely sure how it works. I know that they have like the meeting on Zoom, but I know that they give the talks. Whatever elder is talking does it. I'm not sure entirely who, if they still ask questions or if they do. And I remember hearing somewhere that someone at first, they used to, dress up in a suit and all that stuff and a dress and, they'd be all in it. And then they started casually, not dressing up much.
Yeah.
Like my dad wears the top part of the suit, but he wears, he's in his shorts.
Business
underneath.
On the top, party on the bottom.
Yeah, because it's more comfortable for him.
Yeah.
And it seems like and it's also good for the people who, what we call physically in, mentally out, where like how many of us were at one point who were Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
They can kind of like fade away. So if you're not at the Zoom meeting, it's not as noticeable, but they can still kind of notice. So you can have like you could be logged in, but you could be muted with the camera blocked out. So then they see that you're there, but you're not really there, or you're not really paying attention.
Yeah.
So COVID brought, to wrap up a tangent, it might reinforce, the end times.
Yeah.
But then everything has. But it also gives people a chance to kind of step back and see what see through the rose-colored lenses and see the garbage that really is.
Yeah. And I just had a thought that occurred to me then. If people in your father's congregation were to find out that you'd spoken to me today, you would be classed as an apostate.
Oh yeah, big time.
Right. Okay. So we have to make doubly sure that we don't let that happen. So just going to pass it over to you now, John, and ask you if you think there's anything we've missed or anything you want to mention.
Nothing that I can think of.
I didn't know if there were any answers that you'd written to the questions that we haven't gone over yet.
I think we've gone over everything. I don't have it with me. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, I've told some people about your podcast, and I'm going to be on it.
Yeah.
So hopefully, if they do want to listen, I know one of my best friends, she might be listening. So if you're there, hello. That would be kind of funny if she did. That'd be kind of cool. But I know I have to watch or listen more to your podcast because I've been trying to, do it every so often, but I've been slacking. Yeah,
it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, I've even myself, I've got a few podcasts that I follow quite closely, and I tend to listen to, I only get to listen to sort of 10 minutes here and there when I'm doing a bit of housework or, jumping in the bath and things like that. So it is difficult. It is difficult. I think the main thing is that this content is available for people that it might help. So, by you coming on here and sitting down and speaking with me and telling me your story, it could speak to somebody else and give them, maybe just the small nudge they need to make improvements for themselves and change their lives for the better, just like you have done. So I'm really appreciative and thankful for your time and privileged to be trusted with you coming on here and telling me your story, especially because you are still in contact with your parents. And by coming and speaking to me today, you could be putting that relationship in jeopardy. So that's another reason why I really do appreciate you coming and sitting down with me this evening, John. So thank you very much. And I really hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, you too. Thank you for having me.
That is the end of this week's episode. Again, if you'd like to support me on Patreon, you can find me at patreon.com/The Cult Vault. Please like, share and subscribe to the podcast to help with reaching new listeners. Get in touch at cultvaultpodcast@gmail.com or follow me on Twitter and Instagram at cultvaultpod. I'm your speaker, Casey, and this has been The Cult Vault.